It was just another evening at the Ritz Diner, a cozy little restaurant tucked away in the heart of the city. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the buzz of conversation, filling the air with warmth. Sarah, the waitress, moved gracefully between the tables, a smile never leaving her face, despite the exhaustion in her eyes. Her life had always been a balancing act, keeping her job, raising her son alone, and hiding the overwhelming loneliness that crept in when the world went quiet. Then, there was James, the kind of man who would have been hard to miss, even if you were blind. Tall, dark-haired, with a presence that demanded attention without him even trying. A billionaire businessman, successful yet strangely solitary. The type of man who didn't need to make friends. His money could buy everything, except, it seemed, true connection. On this particular night, fate would throw them together in the most unexpected way. Sarah, carrying a tray of orders, bumped into him. The moment was brief, but the crash of her coffee cup spilling over him was enough to shift everything. For a moment she panicked, her heart racing. But when she saw the look in his eyes, surprised, yet strangely amused, she knew something had shifted. This was the moment that would change everything. Before we dive deeper, let me ask you, what would you have done if you were in Sarah's shoes? A spill? A mistake? Or could it be the start of something that would unravel everything? The first few weeks after the coffee incident were, unsurprisingly, awkward. James didn't come back to the diner much, though Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her from afar. His presence loomed in her thoughts every time the door chimed open. She could only wonder if he remembered her, if he'd ever been bothered by the coffee stain on his expensive suit, or if it had meant nothing at all to him. But Sarah noticed something strange. When he did appear, it was always in the corner booth, hidden from the eyes of the rest of the customers. He didn't order anything extravagant, just a simple black coffee. And he spent hours there, alone. She couldn't help but feel drawn to him. There was something about him, a loneliness in his eyes that mirrored her own. It wasn't just his wealth, nor his looks. It was the way he seemed to drown in a sea of his own thoughts, as if he was always thinking about something heavy. Sarah had a secret of her own. While James may have been drowning in his thoughts, Sarah found herself struggling to keep afloat. Behind her calm exterior was a woman who barely kept her head above water. A single mother, constantly making ends meet, constantly feeling as though she was losing herself. Every day after her shift, she would visit a local homeless shelter. It wasn't much, but she would take what she could spare from the tips she earned and give it to those in need. The guilt of her own situation weighed heavily on her, and though she had nothing, she couldn't bear the thought of others suffering like her. One evening, Sarah saw him again at his usual corner booth. But this time, she couldn't ignore the pull she felt. There was something almost magnetic about the way he sat there, lost in his world. She did what she had never done before. She approached him. "Mr. Walker?" she asked softly, feeling her heart race. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Yes?" His voice was calm, but there was something in it that felt so distant. "I'm sorry about the coffee incident. I hope you didn't mind," she said, glancing down at her shoes nervous. To her shock, he chuckled. "Not at all. In fact, I didn't even notice until I got home. But you've been worried about it all this time, haven't you?" She nodded, uncertain. "I didn't mean to spill it all over you." "It's okay," he said with a smile that reached his eyes this time. "We all make mistakes." That was the start. James came back to the diner more frequently. Over time, their interactions grew from polite exchanges to real conversations. They began to share more. Him about his empire, his lonely nights, and her about her son and the life she was just trying to survive. But what Sarah didn't know, what no one knew, was that James had a secret, one that was tied to the reason he never truly let anyone in. His empire was falling apart. Behind his charming exterior, he was running from debts that no one knew about, and if he didn't fix things soon, everything he had worked for would crumble. Yet, in Sarah, there was something real. He could feel it, the connection, the warmth she gave him, without even knowing it. It was the first time in years that he felt like someone cared about him, not for his money, but for him as a person. The questions loomed. Was he just using her for comfort, or could there be something more? One night, the storm outside mirrored the storm within James. His business was on the verge of collapse, and he knew it. His financial advisors had given him a stark ultimatum: either find a way to make the debt disappear, or lose it all. But James couldn't turn to anyone. Not his partners, not his friends. He had pushed them all away, built walls so high that he was trapped inside them. Sarah had no idea. To her, James was still just the quiet man who sat at the corner booth. But one evening, as she brought him his usual coffee, she caught a glimpse of something she wasn't meant to see. His phone screen, flashing with messages about financial collapse, deadlines, and looming bankruptcy. Her heart stopped for a moment, and for the first time, she saw him not as a distant millionaire, but as a man on the edge, drowning in his own failures. Later that evening, when the diner was almost empty, James caught her staring at him, concern written all over her face. "You know, you don't have to pretend everything's fine," Sarah said quietly, setting the coffee down. "It's okay to let people in." James stared at her for a long moment, and then something inside him cracked. His vulnerability spilled out, unburdening him in a way he hadn't expected. He told her everything: the pressure, the debt, the loneliness that had been eating at him for years. Sarah listened without judgment, her heart aching for him. But as she stood there, she realized that it wasn't just about him. It was about her too. She was on the verge of losing everything, from her son's future to her self-worth. They were both teetering on the edge, yet, in each other, they had found something. That was when she made a choice. She took a leap, one she never thought she'd make. She offered him help. It was risky, but it was the only way she knew how to fight for something more. But would he accept it? James took a step back, staring at Sarah in disbelief. "Help? You really think you can help me?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know that I can't just sit by and watch you fall apart. You've helped me more than you realize." For the first time in years, James felt something other than the crushing weight of his business problems. There was a glimmer of hope, a realization that he wasn't alone. He had someone who cared, not because of his money, but because she believed in him. The next few months were a whirlwind. James made difficult decisions, restructured his empire, and with Sarah's help, slowly climbed out of the hole he had dug himself into. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about rebuilding trust in himself and in the people around him. In time, Sarah's life also transformed. Her relationship with her son grew stronger, and she realized that her worth wasn't tied to her job or her struggles. She found a purpose in helping others, and in the process, she helped herself. As the months passed, the bond between Sarah and James deepened. What began as a moment of chance, a spilled coffee, had turned into something neither of them had expected. Love, genuine and unexpected. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. They had both gone through their own personal battles, and, together, they had emerged stronger. One evening, James surprised Sarah. He walked into the diner with a single rose, something so simple yet so meaningful. He sat down at the same corner booth, where it had all started, and without a word, handed her the rose. I don't know where this will go, he said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. But I do know one thing. I've never felt